from the Woodland Bowl in Indianapolis, Indiana, the USA Network presents the Professional Bowlers Tour, the $110,000 Kessler Classic. Today's 5 finalists are: in 5th place, Paul Gibson, making his 2nd successive USA Championship round appearance and currently one of the hottest bowlers on the tour. The 4th place finisher, Steve Wunderlich, a door knocker who's right there looking for his first tourney win. He has 7 300 games in the last 2 years. Qualifying 3rd, George Pappas, a 14-year tour vet who's deeply involved in every facet of the game. He's also making his 2nd consecutive USA appearance. In 2nd place, Tom Baker, the master of ball control and the tour's Mr. Nice Guy. His positioning round was flawless. And the man we'll be shooting at, this week's leader, Marshall Holman, the new Marshall Holman, who no longer dreads the challenge of bowling on TV. The $110,000 Kessler Classic on the USA Network is brought to you in part by Miller High Life. Who had a good week at 215.2 for an average, and on the left, Paul Gibson, whose weekly average was 216.4. The customary handshake, and we are ready to go. And Mike Durbin, got 2 nice young bowlers here, lots of talent.
Both of them 25 years old, both of them 6 feet tall. Difference is 15 pounds, Wunderlich has it. But it doesn't matter in the sport of bowling. They're bowling on lanes 59 and 60 here at the Woodland Bowl. Both lanes playing just about the same. The players playing right around the 2nd arrow. And Wunderlich starts it off the way you're supposed to, with a solid strike.
Wunderlich out of the blocks, good fashion.
We've seen him before, 5-step player, very square, left arm out, in balance, follow through straight up, just the way it's supposed to be done.
Paul Gibson.
Gibson with much softer speed. Gives it room, doesn't make it back, leaves the 2-8. Paul a little bit nervous. He was striking very well in practice, just gave that ball a little bit too much room. We're sitting right behind the players again, and so we get a good vantage point. Now Paul's different. He drifts quite a bit to the left, opens the shoulder up, brings it back closed, nice soft speed, comes up a little bit at the line there. .28, not an easy spare. Gave it a little room, and it came back. Nice spare. He breathes a little easier now, making that spare.
Paul Gibson went to the University of Oklahoma, and this week rolled a 216.4 for an average. Has yet to win his first PBA title.
He's knocking on the door lately, though.
Boy, he has. He's been bowling very, very well.
On lane 59, in the pocket, and gets the 10-pin out of there. Nice soft speed. His speed is similar to Tom Baker's, who we'll see in a little bit. See again now, watch the 6-pin here. 3rd one from the center pin, 2nd one from the right. It stayed low and got that 10-pin.
This is Steve Wunderlich from St. Louis, Missouri.
Trying for an early lead. In the pocket, a little tight, 4-pin. Just a hair tight, leaves the 4. Quite a contrast here. Wunderlich throws the big hook, but he's not hooking it too much here. Going pretty straight, a lot of speed. Switches balls here to make the spare.
Wunderlich also looking for that first PBA win.
And he's really been knocking on the door. He's been on our USA telecast 4 out of his last 7 tournaments. Has the 4-pin.
Interesting note about this young man. 300 games, 7 in the last 2 years.
Asking for a re-rack on lane 59. This week, Eddie, there were a lot of corner pins. There were a lot of solid 10 pins and a lot of 4 pins that Wunderlich just left. The pins really fly here. The high percentage hit was light. If you could stay light, you carried very well.
I want to talk about the lanes here. As we mentioned in our open, players have been talking about the lanes and saying that they've been tight. Look at the grip.
See how he spreads that index finger, and he's got tape around it to help support that finger, maybe a little bit sore. Right over the second arrow. That's a weak 10. The difference between that and the solid 10 is the 6-pin lays in the channel on that weak 10. It doesn't get out. Where in the solid 10, it goes flying right around it. Steve shaking his head. Carry has been tough all week. Steve was having trouble carrying in practice. Cross lane, switches balls to shoot the 10-pin. Has the spare easily.
So Wonderlich, he's trying to increase his earnings of better than $42,000 for 1983. Sits down and contemplates what he has to do to try and beat this young man, Paul Gibson. See if they can advance to the next level in our championship round here on our USA PBA Tour.
Big shot for Paul right here. He's got little butterflies. Wants to get out to an early lead so he can become more aggressive. Comes in light. There's that high percentage hit I was talking about. I was talking to the 5 finalists early, and all of us agreed that that light hit probably carried at a rate of about 85% this week. But the solid hit, nowhere near that high.
Because the lanes are so tight, Mike, does that not make it a little bit more difficult to curl that ball, to roll that ball in on a hook?
Certainly does, as we see the score right there with Gibson taking an 11-pin lead. But today, the manufacturers make bowling balls, Ed. They grip that surface, and a lot of times we can overcome the lane condition with getting another ball out.
Gibson.
On the left lane, coming in light again, and there's that percentage hit.
So Gibson with the turkey working.
This is what we're talking about here. Keeps it light, not on purpose, but that's the best place. Watch the head pin. It goes to the wall, comes back, and the 4, 5, 7 just fight to get down. Steve tries that light hit, and it works.
Some of that early work that he did back at the Dick Weber lanes in St. Louis is starting to show through. Bo Burton, who is a great name in himself, has had a lot to do with the success of this young man.
He says Bo's helped him work on his mental game. There's his lovely wife, Cindy. She knows that he's 21 pins down, but can cut it down to 11 if he can double here. There's his father, Jerry.
In the 5th.
He's right back in the pocket and gets the 10-pin out of there. Nice shot. Well done.
And so we've got a real good one going between Wonderlich and Gibson. A lot of good bowling. People changing positions. And of course what we have as a result is the 5 that you're going to see tonight. Wonderlich and now Gibson.
See Gibson with that support around his wrist. He cups that wrist right there, thumb buried in the ball. Muscled swing. He's got it in the pocket and carries. Pretty shot. Bumps his lead back up to 21 pins.
And now has 4 strikes in succession working.
Again, Paul with his soft speed gives it room. It comes back. Watch the 6-pin. Second from the right. See how it stayed low and got that 10? Pretty shot right there. And there we see the difference. 21 pins, both players working on doubles. Here it comes. And the weak 10, the 6-pin went right around it.
Gibson finally loses the touch after he had rolled 4 straight strikes.
Really close, right in there.
You know, Mike, going back to one of your earlier
Paul
tips,
switches balls using another ball that goes straighter to shoot at the 10-pin.
I'm going to talk about that wrist position. I know that was one of your tips earlier in our USA series. Cupped position.
Cross lane at the 10-pin. Has the spare. Right now, Wunderlich is down by 20 pins. He can cut it to 10 if he can get one more strike here.
This is Steve Wunderlich. 6 feet, 175, as we told you.
Big
Fourth
shot.
year on the tour.
Big shot for Steve right here. He'll put it in the pocket. It's right there. Pretty shot. Pretty shot. It's a 10-pin ball game. Both players bowling extremely well.
Of course, waiting in the wings is George Pappas. So the winner would move to get Mr. Pappas.
See how square his game is? This is just 10 pins in the pit. Perfect execution and result. He takes another re-rack on lane 59.
How many of those can they call for?
Right now, the rule says on television that they can call for 3 a game, and if they want more than that, the tournament director, Harry Golden, has to take a look at it. This one is to get even in the match. And he's there. Oh, wow. Great shot.
Great form. This young man has got a lot of style.
Great shot. He's got a tremendous game, and it's holding up under the pressure. And again, 10 in the pit. Just can't do it any better than he's doing it.
Had that ball biting all the way. The way he sights his shot. Just lines it up with the shoulder and the ball.
Ray Bluth used to do it similar to that. Cinder. And it gets a little love tap on that 10. Both players bowling extremely well. Even
Love
match
those
through
love
7
taps.
frames. Again, the thing to watch is the 6-pin. Second one from the right. The ball's going to deflect here. And that 6-pin climbs up out of that channel and gets that 10-pin. As Billy Whaley used to say, it was the tender touch. There's his parents, Myrna and Gip.
Proud indeed.
They're talking over the score right now. They know it's tied going into the 8th frame. Paul to take a 10-pin lead. Light, and there's that high percentage light hit carrying one more time.
So important for these young guys, of course, because a win would qualify them for the next Firestone Tournament of Champions in Akron, which our own Mike Durbin knows quite a bit about, and the thrill of being able to win such a prestigious event.
Right now, 10 pins behind Wunderlich, bowling in the 8th frame. Wunderlich's had every ball in the pocket. Gibson was a little light the first frame. He's had every ball since then. It's right there again. Oh, boy. He is just slicing the target. I'm sitting right behind him, and he's hitting the same target every time. There's Cindy looking on. She's saying, one more, please.
His career championship round record, 8 wins and 6 losses. But he still is yet to get that first tournament win.
Right now, Eddie, if both players would strike all the way out, we'd have a tie. They both would shoot 269, and we'd have a tie match. Pretty good opening match.
Not bad.
There we see it. Very simple, 149 with a double working. 9th frame, so important. Foundation. To take the lead. To take the lead, it's light, and he blows him out of there. Woohoo!
Boy, he's on a hot track right now. Best game he's had all week was 256. And he's got to be happy.
Look at the eyes. Look at the eyes, the concentration. Now watch his reaction. He knows it's light, and he carries. Gibson needs this one to keep himself in the match. He's got to have this one. So important.
Gibson's high game, 279.
He gave it too much room. And he
knew it.
leaves the 210.
He knew it too,
Yep.
all the way.
Just went over the top of that ball and gave it too much room.
Well, the match like this one, Mike Durbin, that's all an opponent really needs. Some kind of an opening.
He has to make this, Ed. He absolutely has to make this. He's down 12 pins if he makes it. He's going all out for it. And he hit the pin and it didn't fall over. I don't believe it. His mother and father both dropped their heads. Oh, what a heartbreaking thing here. As we see him go boldly for it, he nicks a 2-pin. It goes over, and watch it hit the 10. And it leads on it.
You've got to hug him when you give him that love tap.
Does it knock it over? He's down 24 pins. He must strike out to have any chance. Back in the pocket. Nope, didn't make it. Leaves the dinner bucket, the 2-4-5-8.
Leaves the what?
It's called the dinner bucket.
Sounds pretty good right now.
Well, it doesn't look too good to Paul, but Wonderlich certainly came through in classic fashion here. He knows the score, knows he's in the driver's seat all the way. Difficult spare, and has it on the left.
And so Paul Gibson now just winding it down as Wonderlich ready to take it across the finish line. And a chance to move on to meet George Pappas.
Paul finishing it out. Trips the 4-pin to finish with a nice 225. Excellent game, but it's just going to be a little short of Wonderlich.
Had a nice performance in his second consecutive appearance in our TV finals. Now that just leaves it all up to Steve Wonderlich.
Well, Steve is more or less just needs to show up and stay behind the foul line here.
That's all it's going to take now.
Our scorekeeper and statistician Mark Williams says he needs 6 to assure himself a victory. And he's right back in the pocket. He gets 10. Woo! Boy.
I'd say that's assuring himself of a victory.
Well, right now he's lined in. He's carrying better than he did in practice. And he's saying, come on, Pappas, I'm ready for you.
That open frame for Gibson.
Oh, yeah, it was deadly. In a high-scoring match like this, boy, you just can't afford those open frames. One more and Steve will be in the 260s.
He's got a string going.
Right there. Wow. 8 in a row.
That's hot.
That's getting hot at the right time, too.
You bet. Wonderlich is bowl like he really enjoys the house here in Indianapolis. The Woodland Bowl.
3 more wins and he'll enjoy it a lot more.
Oh, I'm telling you.
One more time. Yep. Pretty game, boy. Hard to do it any better than he did it that game.
Just a tremendous finish for that young man, Steve Wonderlich. And so his adversary to be George Pappas, wondering if there's a way to cool the young man down. Wonderlich from St. Louis, Missouri. Veteran, been around a long time, 14 years, and Steve Wonderlich, who you just saw perform and eliminate Mr. Gibson in a very, very fine game. He had a 269, so the veteran, Pappas, will see if he can use some of his skills to try and slow down, temper the game of real hot-rolling Steve Wonderlich. Pappas, incidentally, having been around a long time, has used some of that experience, and he's cashed in 16 of his 27 events this year. Let's find out a little bit more about this gentleman who is from Charlotte, North Carolina, with a very pleasing demeanor, George Pappas. I'm with George Pappas, who is making his
classic style, and he's got the type of style that you'd recommend to your youngster, that you'd want him to to bowl exactly like George Pappas does. He's very square. He has a straight free swing. He lifts the ball with his fingers. He's very accurate, has a very positive mental approach to the sport. He's a very big asset to the PBA.
Average 216.5 this week.
Playing a little bit further outside than Wunderlich. And starts off by blowing the 5 into the 7.
That's a nice start for the man that's earned over $500,000 in his career. 8th on the all-time list.
You see the style of George Pappas. The ball just slightly early in timing, and he loses this ball just a hair. Not much, but just a hair. But it rolled up and still got the 5 out.
George Pappas, Charlotte, North Carolina.
The general, they call it.
He's a very pleasant fellow.
Wunderlich finished with 9 in a row, 10 strikes in the opening match. And that's the way he did it, just like that. Right back in there. That's 10 in a row.
He's got a groove now, and he is rolling true. Steve Wunderlich, youthful but skillful.
And really wired in on this right lane. The ball just reacting perfect for him. Just every ball solid on that lane.
Such a young man. Not that many years on the tour.
He's growing in experience. He's definitely a player of the future. Looks like, you know, a potential superstar for the future.
Already 16,300 games in his career, and only 4 years since rolling with the big boys.
Oh, he tugged that ball just a little bit and it held up for him. He's getting a great reaction. That's 11 in a row, Ed. Looked like he hung in this ball just a hair and it was a little left of his target, but it just held up in the oil. Bam.
Now George Pappas.
Every shot of his looks like an instant replay, doesn't it?
Boy, it's beautiful. Classic. Clinic form.
Here's George. Oh, putting on his own clinic.
George has 7 PBA titles.
By far the highest scoring show we've had in a long time is George. About the 8th board, the ball just rolls up solid. Just pretty as a picture. The ball just kept rolling as it went through those pins. George has a way when he puts his hand in the ball here that he fiddles with his shoulder and he fiddles with his arm a little bit, and he tries to get that ball to feel just comfortable as he's putting it in there. See how he fiddles around there?
How would you describe that wrist action there?
Pretty much a straight wrist, not a cupped wrist like some of the players. He's left a target high, 3-6-10. And he puts his hand down like to indicate that he turned the ball early, which means that what he's trying to do is stay behind the ball as long as he can, and at the point of release, he turns the fingers around the ball, and he turned it early, and the thumb hung in it just a little bit, leaves a difficult spare, the 3-6-10.
Wants to go over that 40,000 mark for the year. Just a little under it right now.
Has the spare. Nice conversion. Nice conversion. 27-47. Wunderlich is up 3 pins, can increase it to 13 with 1 more.
You know, in Pappas and Wunderlich and Gibson, the young man we saw in the previous match, you've got probably 3 of the hottest bowlers on the tour.
Right now, yeah. Interesting, too, that these 2 players met on television in Venice earlier in the summer, and Wunderlich defeated Pappas 249-200.
Where are you hiding those numbers?
And there's for the Andy Varapapa 300 right there. 12 in a row. Andy Varapapa, one of the great names in the sport of bowling. Anytime he got 12 in a row, anytime he counted as a 300. And this is why it's always known as an Andy Varapapa 300, just solid. Like another, ooh, the 8-pin almost stood up there for a second. Right now, Steve has 13 out of 15 strikes.
Now, what's he doing? Is he trying to wipe some oil off the ball right there?
He wipes the oil off the ball, correct, and he takes that rosin bag and he pounds it into the finger. As we see the score there, Pappas 47 in the second, Wunderlich perfect, 13 pins the difference. And then he wipes the rosin off to get a good feel all the way through the ball in the holes there. 1 more, and is it going to hit the 4-pin? Almost left the 4-9, and breaks the string at 12 in a row. Still solid in the 1-3 pocket.
Gave it a little smooch, but not enough to knock it down.
Right. This one breaks a little sharper, and the 2-pin flies around the 4 and almost the 9 stand, but it almost fell into the 4. Relatively easy spare, but it gives Pappas life.
It's an opening with a concentration.
Has the 4-pin. Not very much. That plastic ball he's throwing in spares doesn't hook very much.
Pappas down 12.
Both players here using the new urethane bowling balls that the manufacturers have come out with in about the last year or two.
An advantage?
Made a big advantage. Made a big difference in the game. Pappas right back in the pocket. Bam! George has this right lane down just solid.
What about the ball? Why so much an advantage?
Well, the urethane ball, it seems like the idea is that many of the finishes on the lanes are urethane also. And so the urethane ball mixing, grabbing with the urethane finishes, as we see the difference there, 12 pins, 79 to 67, creates a tremendous friction that the ball is grabbing the lane and really biting when it goes into those pins, and it just plows them over.
Conditions of the lanes in the last few weeks on the tour, they claim, been excellent. Dressing very well.
But this is by far the highest scoring we've had on our telecast. Gives this one more room. Here it comes. Oh, what a pretty shot. Oh, nice ball by George Pappas. Cuts that lead down to 2 pins.
And while the fellas go back and contemplate their next move, we're going to take a break. We're in Indianapolis, Indiana. And this is the Woodland Bowl and the 1983 Kessler Classic. And what you're looking at right now is a young man that has just been bowling sensationally here this week, Steve Wunderlich. Defeated his first opponent, Paul Gibson, 269 to 225. And now up 12 in the
He's
sixth.
a little short with this shot. And breaks the 3-6-10 down for the 3-10. His first bad shot that he's made in 2 games. And he gets a split. And we have an even match. He needs to make this spare to keep the match even.
So he picked a bad time to come up a little dry.
Sometimes after a commercial break like that, the bowler has a tendency, the concentration wanes just a hair. Going to a different ball that doesn't bite the lane as much to make the 3-10. Failure to miss this cost him in Limerick. And he has it. Pretty. All right. Interesting fact, Steve is from St. Louis, Missouri, and Dick Weber now lives in St. Louis, Missouri, but Dick Weber originally was from Indianapolis, Indiana, and he was a postman here. This is where he started out his bowling career.
And Wunderlich did most of his junior bowling at the Dick Weber lanes in St. Louis. So nice little corollary all the way down the line.
Dick Weber bowled in this tournament here too. Back in the pocket, pretty shot. 1 minute elapsed, back in the pocket.
Steve Wunderlich, who had 10 strikes in the first game against Paul Gibson, comes right back with another here against George Pappas. Watch it.
This one is another just 10 in the pit. Pappas to take the lead in the match for the first time. Twitches that right shoulder to get comfortable.
Averaging 209 for the year.
It's right there. And got the 10 pin out. He says, oh, baby. He was looking for a solid 10 on that all the way. And it looked like it was going to be a solid 10. Watch the 6 pin, second from the right. It goes and just nicked that 10 pin going by. It just, the breeze knocked it over.
Pappas by 10, rolling in the 7th.
Can increase it to 20 with one more here.
One of the fellows that you don't hear a lot about, takes his winnings from any pro-am events and donates them to charity. Very nice gesture, George Pappas.
He's back in the pocket, and that high percentage light hit. He's put Wunderlich down by 20 pins, and he's put Wunderlich in a position now where Steve must strike here. I mean, the way George is going, it looks like he's going to strike out. So Steve's got to keep up with him.
That one swing, that one opening has enabled him to step out on top. Wonderlich had it going good, and then Pappas stepped right into the breach. And now Wonderlich is back to work, looking for that big strike again.
A little tight. The ball just snapped on him just a hair. Leaves the 4-7, breaks up the split.
Looking for his first PBA win ever on the tour. The way he sights it.
He'll go straight at these two. That ball. Has to spare. He's in trouble, though. Still down 20 pins.
Pappas will step up, rolling in the 8th. And let's look at what it looks like on paper.
Pappas with 127 in the 5th frame, double working. Wonderlich 137 in the 6th with a spare up. The difference 20 pins, and Wonderlich is only working on a spare right now. Steve is still potential. 247 if he can strike all the way out. Gets that 10-pin out there, back in the pocket. But he's lost the right lane the last 2 shots.
Looks like he's going out a little wider than he was early.
He is circling just a little bit more. That could be the lanes are drying up just a hair. Watch that 6-pin. Snap that 10 right out of there. Pappas up 20 pins, can increase it to 30. Big shot right here, very big shot. A little quick, but it's there. Oh, solid. He's all right, baby.
He's a money player. There's no question about it. One of only 10 players in PBA history to have earned more than $500,000 in his career. He's had this kind of reaction more than once over the years. Watch him.
Runs back with it. Determination. George is a very determined player, and he wants to win. One more, and he puts it up 40 pins.
With 5 strikes in a row working. Trying to get the feel. This is what Mike Turk talked about earlier.
He's there. Oh, my goodness gracious. He's put Wonderlich in a position where Steve must strike out to force George to mark. Boy, he threw his 2 best shots of the match in the 8th and 9th. Bam! And he do it.
Using that experience now, he has the young man in a corner. And let's see how he reacts. The veteran versus the youth.
Cindy knows the score. She knows her husband's in big trouble. Oh, solid 8. Well, that ends it right there. He couldn't have thrown it any better. He certainly reacted to the pressure fine.
40 pins down, and time is not an ally.
Well, as big as Wonderlich's game was in the first match with 269, Pappas can surpass it in this match by striking out for 277.
Wonderlich had rolled 13 strikes in a row going back to the last game, and then he got hurt. And Pappas now is definitely the man to watch as he will look ahead to the challenge of Tom Baker, and that looks like what we'll have next for you on our classic here from Indianapolis.
Four-pin. But a one-game match, carry is just everything. Steve had 2 balls out of the pocket. In the 5th frame, a little lapse of concentration. In the 7th frame, on his good lane. Came through in the 9th frame, got the bad break in solid 8, but even if he'd have struck out, he would have simply forced Pappas to mark there. And the way George is going, Of course, you never can take anything for granted.
No. Steve taking a lot less time now. Very disconsolate.
He wants to win so badly. He wants to get that first one. He's bowled so well lately, and that first one is so elusive. Sometimes it just keeps slipping away.
You want that, want to get that olive out of the jar. This man's had many of them. 14 years on the tour and 7 PBA titles, as we mentioned earlier. George Pappas.
Gave this one more room, and it just comes roaring back. Boys, he got a shot on this pair. I'll tell you, George is going to be tough to beat.
He's only had 1 spare in the entire game. Everything else has been a strike.
That's not a bad way to do it, is it?
7 in a row right now. There's only one thing better than that, I guess, at this point.
Yeah, right. And he doesn't have a full rack, so he had to take another re-rack. The pins didn't set up 10 of them for him then, just only 9. George says that's all right with him.
Very slight trace of a smile. I think he feels as if it's Tom Baker next. Marshall Holman laying back in the wings.
And a little high. But with a spare, he'll finish with 265. Too bad we couldn't have Wonderlich's first game against Pappas' second game. What a match that would have been, huh?
Yeah, that's just a little bit shy of his best game all week. The best one he rolled was a 268. But he's been pretty consistent all week long.
He bowled extremely well in the match play portion of the tournament. Has the spare. Finishes with 265.
And Wonderlich ends up 216. So a commanding win by George Pappas. And that means Pappas and Baker next. The Nagy Award the last couple of years, didn't he?
Steve Nagy Sportsmanship Award, right? Very easygoing fellow. Gets along well with everyone.
And this is George Pappas. You just saw him if you were with us. If you didn't, he was sensational. And he is ready to go.
And there's the solid 10, the one George was looking for last game, and it didn't stand. He told me in between games he was looking for something to stand pretty quick, and it did.
Won his first title in 1970.
So far, Ed, our 4 players that have bowled, or the 4 games that we've had, the players have averaged 244.3 with 32 strikes. That's 8 a game.
And so he gets himself the spare, and we're underway in our match between Pappas and Baker. And Marshall Holman will get the winner of this one. Now Tom Baker, winner of 5 PBA titles, has almost $370,000 in career earnings.
A little deeper than the rest of them. Right, solid, the 1-3 pocket. Interesting, his practice shots, he around the pocket, missed it, turned the lights on, and bam, he throws it right in there. Baker, very smooth, 5-step player. Drops the ball down, see the left arm out for balance, closes the shoulder. Good follow through, good balance.
Watch the grip.
Fiddles with that ball a lot. He's got it so it feels pretty good right now. To take a 10-pin lead. And 4-pin. Boy, he's playing a tight line closer to the 3rd arrow, where Pappas is playing around the 7th, 8th board. Baker is about 7 or 8 boards further left than he is, where there's more oil or more dressing, keeping the ball tight in the 1-3 pocket.
Well, you have your strokers and your crankers, and this fellow does a little of each.
Exactly right. Very observant there, and he does both.
So Tommy Baker is off and rolling. And I'm going to give you a little quiz here because you seem to be so knowledgeable, erudite about the PBA Tour. There have been, in one season, 6 players who've earned over $100,000 in a year. I want you to name them. I'm going to give you time to think about that, Mike, as we watch George Pappas.
Pappas over that 8th board and leaves that soft 10-pin. Just a little more speed than he was showing in the first match. Well, we know Earl Anthony is made over $100,000.
He's right there.
And we know that one of the fellows on the show here, Marshall Holman, has made over 100 because he's made that this year.
You're
Mark
going
Roth. Mark Roth did it a number of years.
You're streaking now.
And Way Webb, when he was bowler of the year in 1980, snuck in and made over 100,000. And last year, Dave Houston got over 100,000. We've got 6 players that did.
Well, I think we have him right in our midst. And very shortly, he'll be stepping up against this fella, George Pappas. I'm talking about Tom Baker. Tom Baker had a $100,000 plus year. 6 men to earn over 100,000. That's quite a feat. That's tremendous.
Well, we may have a 7th this year as Tom Milton is closing in.
That's
he
right.
only needs to make 2,200 more to get there.
Down 1, rolling in the 3rd, George Pappas.
Gave it a little room. It's not going to make it. 2, 4, 5. Just didn't get the lift on that ball and gave it too much room.
And so the man that won the '79 Firestone Tournament of Champions, George Pappas, falling upon some tougher times here in this match against Tommy Baker. As we move up the ladder.
This was a tough spare all week long. I missed this a number of times. It's easy to chop, and then if you give it a board room, the lanes were so slick that it would sail by. That's the way you do it, just like that. Played it from the left, right down the 4th arrow. George moves to the left right here. Right over the middle arrow, hits every pin with the ball. That's exactly the way you're supposed to do it.
Tom Baker, winner of almost $65,000 so far in 1983.
It's a little high. Breaks up the split, leaves only the 6 pin. And right now, the high scores are deserting us just a little bit. Both players struggling just a little bit here.
Were the scores this week high or just about normal?
They seem to get better as the week went on.
As the week goes on. Adjust to the lanes?
And yeah, adjust to the lanes. Plus the lanes seem to be extremely slick in the early part of the week and got a little drier as the tournament went on.
Tom Baker, who is awaiting the news as to whether his child has been born any moment now. His wife Lisa back in Buffalo. And here's what he's thinking about, however, right now, that score.
3 pin difference. Both players working on spares. Baker has the edge. And, ooh, high again. Leaves, breaks up the split. Had a bunch of pins standing up there on that one. Leaves only the 4-7.
Mike, that time looked like he was having a little tougher time rotating his wrist to try and get himself comfortable.
He does that. He has problems. He broke that wrist a number of years ago. As we see a replay of his shot in the ball going high, we see, oh, man, he had the Greek church up there. He had the 6, 9, 10 along with the 4-7, and they all fell. And he's told me that it healed, but it's never been quite right ever since it healed. And that's why he fiddles with that ball so much to try and get that right feel. He feels that as well as he's done out here, that if he had never broken that wrist, he would be doing better.
Well, right now he has a 1-pin lead with Pappas getting set to go here in the 5th.
Pappas looking for his first strike. And he's a little light and leaves the weak 10 again. Now, I don't know exactly what has happened here, whether George has picked up his speed a little bit or whether the dressing, what happens many times as our television show progresses, the balls carry that dressing down the lane and the lane actually gets tighter for a while the bowlers are bowling on. Cross lane at the 10 pin. Has the 10 pin. Well, strikes came very easily in this first match. George is still trying to find that elusive first strike. As we see the difference, 2 pins, both players working on spares.
Low scoring game so far. George making his second consecutive appearance in the championship round finals, and his third overall in '83, while Baker in his sixth championship round appearance in 1983.
George back in the pocket, and that one carries. He says, all right, finally.
That's what he's been waiting for. And we'll see the exuberance by George Pappas.
See that pretty form, that follow through out there? He kind of gives it a little body.
Gave me a little Nureyev shot there. And that's the way it is so far here at the Woodland Bowl in Indianapolis. The $110,000 Kessler Classic will continue when we return. 83 style here at the Woodland Bowl as Tom Baker steps up. And boy, he got himself off to a rolling start last night in the positioning round with a perfect 300 game. Here he is.
Back in the pocket. And carries. Pretty shot there. Tom, his best finish was second at the Miller High Life Open this year. I was on that show, and he promptly disposed of me.
Well, not a lot of people do that. You've been bowling well lately, Mike. Congratulations.
Just trying to put food on the table for 3 kids at home.
Yeah, and you've only been doing it for 17 years. And you're having such a rough time. Mike Durbin, our partner here on our USA telecasts and the president of the PBA Tour.
Baker to take a 12-pin advantage. The light, and it comes up solid. Nice shot.
So Tom Baker, who at one time combined with Pete Weber and set a PBA scoring record when they tied 300 in match play in Denver in 1982. Shows you his form.
Soft speed. And the 6-pin stays low here and gets that 10 out. His ball just keeps gaining the pocket. Pappas, who's left 2 10-pins on this right lane, is in a must-strike situation. He's got to keep even with Baker. And this time he carries the light hit.
Trailing by 2.
George knows he threw this one well. Really lifted it with the fingers. He comes in light and just opens him up. Still, I watch that hit time after time, and I can't figure out what hits a 10-pin. There you see the difference, 2 pins. Both players working on doubles. Pappas to take the lead for the first time in the match.
Has not had a good TV record, however. Between the Firestone victory in '79 and his '82 win, he was 1-11, but trying to do something about it here tonight.
And that light hit carried. He smacks his hands. When George starts bowling well, everything starts moving faster. He doesn't know whether it's going to strike now. He says, all right. Smacks those hands, and then he walks back off the approach very fast. That's his aggressive personality coming out.
Look at Baker adjust the wrist. Turns it, and he's ready.
And he's high. Oh, it held all the way.
Well, if he can just remember what he did there. Turn it a couple notches right.
High. I was sitting right behind it. It was a little left to where he threw the last one, and it just set right there. Right over the 3rd arrow. Here I thought it was going high, and it sets perfect. Baker back in the lead by 2.
We have a tight one. We are in the 8th frame. You'll see it yourself.
2 experienced players here. Neither one of them will give it away. Baker going for one more, and he has it. Oh, he's lined in now.
Tom Baker with 4 straight strikes. Pappas working on 3 of his own.
Baker's carry is so good because of the soft speed. The pins stay down low here. Just pretty. As Pappas asked for a re-rack and got it. He's looking at this one. He wants another one now. This is such an important shot, Ed, right here. He's down 12 pins. We're in the 8th frame. George knows he has to keep striking. There's just the way Baker's going. Baker's liable to strike all the way out. And so Pappas must strike to keep the pressure on him. He doesn't like this one either. I'm looking at it, and it doesn't look that bad to me. He's going to ask for one more.
He may see something down there at his angle that we don't see up here.
It could have been possibly a slight open pocket, which means the 1 and the 3 were slightly separated. This one looks pretty good to me. I would shoot this one. And believe me, I re-rack more than anyone.
It always interests me, you know, basketball players can step on a floor and take a look at a rim, and you'll never see the difference, but they can tell you if it's off just a centimeter. Bowlers likewise. If it doesn't look right, it doesn't feel right to them. They ask for the re-rack, and in this case, Pappas is ready to go.
Big shot. He's high. And he trips a 4-7 out of there. Got away with what he said. Back to 2 pins. What a break that was. What a break that was. George is left of target with this one, and he knows it. That disgust on his face, and then smacks his hands.
Well, he's not looking at the 265 that he had in the last game.
He has a potential 255, though, if he goes all the way.
He's not looking bad, you're right.
Big shot. He has to get this one to take the lead and set himself up for the 10th frame. Solid. It held all the way. George gets a smile from him. He didn't think that ball was going to hold. He's back and sitting in his chair quickly.
Yeah, that's as good as an order of baklava for George Pappas.
He says, I'll take it, all right, and he's in the lead by 8 pins.
Tom Baker.
Baker's fate is in his own hands. If he strikes all the way out, he gets 257, and there's nothing Pappas can do. Baker would win.
28th TV appearance for Tom.
And he doesn't trip the 4-7 as Pappas did. And right now, Baker is down by 10 pins. We still can have a very exciting finish here. Baker makes this spare. It would strike out in the 10th frame. Would force Pappas to get the first one in the 10th to win.
Puts a little pressure on himself. And Pappas
knows the score.
He's thinking about all the alternatives now.
But Pappas knows now that his fate is in his own hands. He can win it himself. He can't sit on the bench and watch Baker strike out to beat him.
And so Tommy Baker, one of 3 players in PBA history to win 3 consecutive tournaments, has a big job ahead now.
There we see both players have won 65 in the 7th. Baker won 85 in the 8th with a spare working. Pappas with a double working, the difference 10 pins in Pappas' favor. Tom not taking very much time. Has to have this first one. Gave it room, and it's not going to make it. He leaves the 2-4-5-8, and Pappas has had it handed to him.
Well, that's not the way you like to step aside.
Tom just didn't get the lift on this ball that he wanted. Gave it a board room, and a ball will not make it back. Slides by. Difficult spare. Has the spare perfectly. The strike will finish with 221. Force Pappas to get 9, I believe, on the first ball to be a winner.
One of his lesser games of the week. Of course, as I mentioned, he had the 300 in the positioning round last night. Tom Baker, Buffalo, New York.
Light again. And the same thing. Oh, now Pappas doesn't even need anything, hardly.
So he finishes with 217, does Tom Baker. And Pappas is going to be able to waltz into the final round against Marshall Holman.
Well, our statistician, Mark Williams, says that Pappas needs 8 on his first ball to ensure that he's going to be a winner.
Has 5 strikes in a row working.
He went high in this lane the last time in the 8th frame. And he's solid. Bam! That's it. Pappas goes on to face Holman.
That shapes up as a very interesting final, incidentally.
We were teasing George earlier in the match that he was the old man of the group here. He's the only one over 30. He's 36. And it's going to be the old man going for the title now.
As he completes his second hurdle on the way to the Roses.
George moved in just a little bit. Boy, leaves the 310. Makes it, he's still finished with a 243. Very fine effort. George did get a few breaks in that game.
His best game of the week was a 268. He had a 267, 264, 256, 245, and this one.
And misses the 310 to finish with 242.
And so there it is. And George Pappas receives congratulations from Tom Baker. Tom had a little rough run at the end, and now it's on to the indefatigable Marshall Holman. Pappas and Holman coming up in our finals. And our U.S.
First year of eligibility. We have an interesting thing going on here too, is Marshall has two balls on the rack. One hooks quite a bit and the other one goes straighter. He's striking with both of them. Be interesting to see which one he chooses.
Pappas getting set to bowl. His average so far 253.5, and he's had 15 strikes in his 2 games to get here.
And right through one, he leaves the 3-4-6. I've never seen George leave that ever. That's a makeable split though. You hit the 3-pin on the right thin enough, you can slide it into the 4.
Easier said than done.
It's definitely easier said than done.
Defeated Tom Baker, Steve Wunderlich, to get to this level.
Cross lane. And slides by, he gets 8 out. He gives Holman a 12-pin advantage right away. And Marshall's going with a ball that hooks more.
So Marshall Holman making his 63rd television appearance.
Oh my goodness, that's incredible.
Yes, it is.
And he's not even 30 yet.
28 years old. He's had quite a year. $100,000, $185. He's only missed 4 paydays.
And throws it right through the nose, and it'll be interesting to see if he changes balls.
I didn't see him during the week, Mike, but he averaged 219.1. Was he having trouble deciding which ball in?
No, I think he went with the hooking ball all the way through, as we see the steady head of Marshall Holman, on balance. Good follow through. At the 610, has the spare. I think his dilemma here, though, is that he's the type of player that likes to swing the ball. In other words, he likes to throw it out and have it come back. And with the one ball, he can do that. And with the ball that goes straighter, it holds a little bit more for him. And I think he's a little afraid to use that. So he's sticking with the ball that hooks more right now.
See that pin that he's wearing on his shirt? There is some significance to that.
Well, that's a pin that he got in Austin, Texas. It's called the Aquafest Mr. Gaddy's Open, and that pin is from the Aquafest people there, and he wore that to break his TV string of not winning. As he sends it way out, comes back, leaves the 2-8, and I think Marshall's going to switch bowling balls.
And he had lost 19 straight TV appearances when he came up with the big one, and evidently he feels that there's a little magic in that pin. Let's see how it holds true here tonight. He has 16 PBA titles.
And he told me today that he has somewhere in the neighborhood of 17 seconds. So, a win here could maybe get him even. Tough spare, has the 2-8. Nice conversion. But he didn't hit the pocket with either shot. And he picks up the other ball, the one that goes straighter.
And now George Pappas. Down 10 pins. Rolling in the second frame.
Pappas on lane 60. Back in the pocket. Solid 10. Excellent shot. Can't do it any better. The 6-pin just whistled around the 10. Believe me, there were a lot of those left this week. We haven't seen a lot of them on the show, but there were a lot left this week. Watch the 6-pin. It will never even get close to the 10. Just wraps around so fast. Like a bullet. Has the spare.
And the question now is, will that open frame, first frame, hurt George Pappas in this final game against Marshall Holman? We saw it earlier. Open frame, they always seem to come back and haunt, like a walk in baseball. There's Marshall Holman.
Biting on that fingernail or thumbnail.
Just don't bite on the one on the right hand.
Pappas.
George Pappas.
Fiddling with that right shoulder, trying to get comfortable.
Boy, these guys are almost clones as far as bills are concerned. Both about 5'9", both about 140.
All right, carries the 10-pin this time. Excellent shot. And Marshall is switching bowling balls. He's going to the ball that goes straighter now. George with his classic style. Shot maker to the end. Watch the 6-pin this time. Gets the 10-pin. A little softer speed. And Marshall uses another ball and strikes with it. Uses the ball that goes straighter. He moves a little bit to the right on the approach, plays right around the second arrow. Marshall always swings the ball.
Keeps it low.
He's up by 10 pins right now, 38-28. Both players on strikes. And what Marshall wants to do right now is get that double. If he does, you could look for some of Marshall Holman's famous facial gyrations and body gyrations. Very little time. White didn't make it, breaks the 2-8 down for only the 2-pin. Left lane seems to be going a little bit further down the lane for him than the right. And the ball just did not make it back. And Marshall is just a little bit uptight right at this point. He's not loose and into the game like he can get.
There's one goal right now, and that is he wants to be the PBA Player of the Year.
And he knows this game means so much. It has maybe that writing on the outcome. Makes a 2-pin, maintains his 10-pin lead, and Pappas can even the match.
He said by far the biggest tournament of his career, this one right here.
George is asking for a review. Well, Marshall wants that Player of the Year so badly, but he's $35,000 behind Earl Anthony. And that's a lot of money to try and make up with a few amount of tournaments left.
But he still thinks that Earl Anthony, once he senses Marshall getting a little closer, might come out of return. How do you feel about that? You know Earl pretty well.
I don't think he will.
You don't think he will? George Pappas has other things in mind right now.
Yeah, he's trying
to get back in the groove.
He wants to get a double to even this matchup. A little high, 4-pin, just a hair tight. It was just a hair left of his target. Close. Easy spare for George. He'll shoot cross lane at the 4-pin. He wanted that one badly to get right back in this match.
He bowled 2 nice games to get here. And now he has one man standing between himself and $15,000 in cash.
Has the spare. George has achieved 1 goal, though. By finishing first or second here, it's going to put him in the top 25 money winners right at this point. If he would win this one, he would probably lock him in for the 14th consecutive year. That's quite a record.
He can do no worse than $8,000.
There we see the 10-pin difference. Both players on spares. 5th frame action. George finished 12th this year in the 1983 Showboat Tournament. Back in the pocket, and that light hit carries one more time.
And so George Pappas, who likes to follow football and basketball, play a little bit, Mike Durbin, and this man Marshall Holman, who was the leader coming in and trying to put this one away. And And if he could do that, it would be his 17th PBA title.
Gives it a lot of room. Here it comes. Solid 10. Great shot. Ring and 10. Both players that left one of those on lane 60. The ball comes in with so much power on it, those pins just fly. And in that case, it penalized him. A more substantial pin probably would have struck. Marshall throws very hard and doesn't hook it very much at shooting 10 pins. Just flies up the line and fires at that 10 pin. Uh-oh. Just held on. I thought it was going to drop off, maybe.
Right on the line.
Get a little murmur from the crowd back here, too.
Did not miss by much from putting that ball in the channel.
Right. That ball, at this point, I thought it was going to fall off, and it just bit enough. He had it measured just right. He says, no problem.
You know, that's amazing when you stop and think of it, though. Here's a fellow that's bowled in 27 national tournaments this year, and he's only missed cashing 4 times. That's quite a record.
Quite a record. One of them was last week in Cleveland.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Likes to jog, likes to play golf. Pretty good golfer, as a matter of fact.
Takes very little time. Back in the pocket. Another solid 10. Wow. There's just been so many of those this week. I know I left a few of them myself.
Like to go out there and pick them up right now, huh?
Oh, I tell you, it gets so frustrating. You execute the shot as well as you can throw the bowling ball, and then that 10 pin stands up there and just laughs at you.
It's the rub of the green, as they say in golf.
Cross lane to 10 pin. Has this one easier. Pappas, though, can take the lead with a double. Holman with only 1 strike through 6 frames. However, the last 2 shots have been in the pocket.
Pappas is 8 pins down. Rolled a 265 and a 242 to get here. But the 3rd hurdle may be the toughest. Marshall Holman.
George is in the pocket and blows him out of there, takes the lead. 2-pin lead for Pappas right now, can increase it to 12 with 1 more. George is a person who, when he senses victory, knows how to take advantage of it. And right now, he smells victory.
So does this banker somewhere out there in television land. $15,000 riding on this beauty. Trying to get comfortable.
He's in the pocket. And the 10-pin. We got a 1-pin match. George smacks his hand on his side there. He just didn't get the lift on that ball that he wanted. 1-pin match if he makes the 10-pin. No mistakes at this stage of the match. Cross lane. Take his time. Make sure he gets that spare. Has it. And Holman has life.
At that open frame in the first still has got to have an effect on George Pappas. You don't like to leave yourself a hole.
Back in the pocket and carries this time. Keeps himself 1 pin behind. Marshall usually doesn't show this much reaction when he's only getting a single strike. You see those teeth grinch to take the lead as we see 1 pin, 3 frames to go. Holman on a strike. He has not struck on lane 59 yet. Right there. And now he has. He's 9 pins ahead. Excellent shot by Holman there. The last 4 have been all dead solid. Pappas.
How about the histrionics on this one, though?
Oh,
this is unbelievable.
This is mild for him, really.
Oh, he gets into it. Yes, sir. Like George Steinbrenner after Bruce Gossage had just struck out the side. Another Yankee win.
George is high. 3-6, just a bad shot. Just lapse in concentration. Bad place to have it. Puts the match now. He's 11 pins behind. The best George can get if he makes this spare and strikes all the way out is 215. Making this spare is an absolute must. Has it. Going to lane 59. He must strike Eddie in the 9th frame to set himself up for the 10th. He's 11 pins down. He has to have a strike here to put some pressure on Holman.
He knows it. And now the task.
It's changed dramatically in just 2 frames. Pappas was in the driver's seat. Now Holman is.
Boy, the swing is just, it's incredible how these things swing so quickly.
He's light. And he's going to get the 10 pin. Yes!
He knew it. He talked it down, didn't he?
Little messenger pin there. George is watching that pin, and he says, all right.
Talk to it. There it is.
He's still 11 pins down. Holman's fate is in his own hands. A strike here in the first one of the 10th, and he's going to be a winner. And he knows it. He's a little tight, a little high. Does not break up the split. Leaves a 6, 7, 10. And it's swung back the other way. Marshall has to make this. Marshall has to make this.
How do you do
6,
it,
7, 10. You got to hit the 6 pin on the right thin and slide it over into the 7. Marshall's going to go for it because he would be 4 pins down if he gets 9 out.
Quick math by Mike Durbin.
And he's not going to make it. And he gets 9 out. That's exactly what he is. He's 171 in the 9th frame. What a big shot that was. Now Marshall rather, getting my bowlers confused here.
You're getting worked up.
Yeah. As George watches and looks on. Marshall has to double in the 10th frame to make Pappas strike. He looks at the score, the overhead projector to the left. Back in the pocket. Has that one. That's the one he was looking for in the 9th frame. He needs one more just like that, Ed. He's down 4 pins. He needs one more just like that one.
Remember his performance a year ago when he broke the hand?
Yes, I do.
Never saw a guttier performance by many people in sports than Marshall Holman. And he won 3 games.
He bowled super that day.
With a broken hand. Working with the ice. Doing everything to keep the swelling down. Let's see what he does under pressure here.
He's there. And another solid 10 pin. Oh, he couldn't have thrown it any better. He couldn't have thrown it any better. And what it boils down to is Pappas needs a spare and 7 pins. Needs to fill 17 in the 10th frame to win the Kessler Classic here in Indianapolis. Has the 10 pin. Finishes with 191.
Oh boy, that open frame. There it is again. 191 for Marshall Holman.
George wants to make just one good shot here now and end it with a strike. hard, really hard. Leaves the 2-4-5-8, the dinner bucket, a difficult spare. He really did not want to go high and threw it with too much speed. Holman looking on. He knows he has to make this. George goes back for the rosin bag. Very composed player, George is. And Marshall moves over to take a look at it himself.
Pappas looking for his 8th tour title. It's in his hands.
Right at it. He has it. Great conversion. Now George needs to get 7 on this ball. If he lifts another dinner bucket, we'd have a tie. He threw the spare ball so well. Straight at it with a lot of speed. Right at the 2-pin. Made the spare perfectly. What a tough spare to have to make to win a title or to win anything.
So George Pappas, who finished 4th in the Northern Ohio Open a week ago, with a chance to win it here in Indianapolis.
Right at it. That's enough. 195 wins it for him.
I know that somewhere, wife Carol and son Chad are very, very proud of that man, George Pappas, 36 from Charlotte, North Carolina, as he finishes with a 195 to Marshall Holman's 191. He had to overcome 3 hurdles to get to the $15,000 barrier. He got there. For Marshall Holman, who finishes 2nd, $8,000 tonight. We'll be back with our presentation when we return to Indianapolis tonight. And George Pappas takes home $15,000. And here to make the presentation, Dennis Brophy, the National Product Manager of Kessler's, and Jim Doty, the General Manager of the Woodland Bowl and the Vice President of the Central Indiana PBA. Gentlemen, a check and a trophy. And that's a pretty nice way to end up a night for one George Pappas. Who's going to have the first say here?
George, first of all, let me congratulate you on a very gutsy performance. I can't think of anybody here that bowled this tournament that's more worthy of this championship. So on behalf of Calvert Distillers and Smoother Silk Kessler, let me present you this trophy, the symbol of our championship, and good luck next year in all your tournaments and the rest of this year, too.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to express my appreciation to Kessler's for taking such an active interest in Pro Bowlers Tour. They sponsor another tournament in the summer, and it's really nice to have a super sponsor like Kessler. And I'd also like to thank Jim Doty and his staff here in Indianapolis for a super tournament, very, very well prepared. And it's a great facility. We had 80 lanes here, and we had plenty of room to move around in, and it's just really a pleasure to bowl here, and I'm looking forward to coming back next year.
All right, very good. All right, now let's get on to the big stuff, $15,000 in cash. Jim?
Thank you. On behalf of the Central Indiana Bowling Pro Association, George, I have to give you this check. It was such a glowing remark you made. $15,000, George.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
It's been really, really nice. Thank you all out there.
Well, we've had a great night here in Indianapolis, and Mike Durbin, a final comment before we bail out.
Quickly, George. You need the mark in the 10th frame. You leave the bucket. What's going through your mind to make that spare?
Well, the bucket is without a doubt the toughest spare on tour for me, and I don't think I'm 50% this year shooting it. But I just try to maintain my composure and just try to make a good shot at it. And I was very fortunate that just the place that I happened to stand and roll the ball just happened to be the right place.
Congratulations, George.
He beats Wunderlich, he beats Baker, and he beats a very tough Marshall Holmes.